All right, everyone, welcome to the first recap of the Toronto's Demise 2015 season. It was a long wait between the draft and this weekend to get things finally started. Um, Obviously, we drafted a little bit earlier than normal this year, and I've already started using the word obviously, which will probably be pointed out later on. But I don't know about you, but it was quite frustrating for me to have to use some transactions before the season even started because of drafting so early. A couple people got hurt, people got cut. Some people still have cut players on their roster. Uh, so it made it a little bit tricky and frustrating before the season started. And the 2 weeks between the draft and the season seemed like 2 months, at least to me. I don't know about you, but thank goodness we're back. We're going strong. And we had a pretty good week one, except for a couple people who suffered injuries. We'll get into that as we go along. But, as we always do, let's start right into it with the defending champ, FC Bohoric, who got everything he could handle and more against Vanilla this week. And Vanilla won this one with the highest score of week one, 231.2 to FC Bohoric's 189.55. FC was pretty pessimistic, I'd say, going into this matchup with all of his Broncos. Not too happy about his running game situation. But Drew Brees, usual Drew Brees, got you 52. Keenan Allen, as we know, a little bit nervous about him. I'm sure most people were. He definitely underperformed last year, but then he came out and caught 15 passes, 160 yards. Unfortunately, if he could have caught a touchdown or two, that wouldn't have made a difference, but it would definitely have made this one closer. At least pushed you up over 200. although things are going your way, even though you lost, when you get 2 touchdowns from Bishop Sankey, that might never happen again. Probably hasn't happened to Bishop Sankey since he was in high school. But C.J. Anderson, Greg Olsen, Vincent Jackson, even Marcus Wheaton in a way, they all let you down. 10 points from Wheaton, 9 from Vincent Jackson, only 2 from Greg Olsen, who I'm sure everybody expected to be the number one receiver for the Carolina Panthers going into the season. One of your third highest scoring player was your kicker, McManus. Buffalo defense, though, got to feel pretty good about them going forward since they shut down the Indianapolis Colts at home, one of the strongest offensive teams in the league this year. Good game from them. But, like I said, it wasn't enough to overcome Vanilla this week. He got the big game on Thursday from Tom Brady. 55 points from him. 14 from Cobb. Big 0, though, from Deshaun Jackson. Still got you, if he had played, you might have pushed at least 250. But 0 from him. DeAndre Hopkins goes for 9 and 90 yards. 2 touchdowns from him. Carlos Hyde, 2 more touchdowns, over 150 yards. Forte, same thing. You didn't have him in the flex, but it didn't really matter when you get into the end zone twice. Get 140 rushing yards. The bonus for going over, getting all those rushing yards kind of makes up for losing the receiving points there. But Jordan Cameron, Eric Decker, 11 points from each of them. Over a dozen from your kicker, Robbie Gould, and let's see, the Jets defense, Yahoo says it was 24. I think it was closer to 30, 35, somewhere in that range. I can't remember. But, so yeah, you got 50 from your quarterback. You got 30, 30, and 30 from Hopkins, Hyde, and Forte. So that's 145 points right there. Plus your defense, that's 170, 180. So a great start. Pretty much everything all fell together for Vanilla in this one. All the touchdowns, all the catches, all the yards. That's probably not going to happen every week, so enjoy this one. If it does happen for you every week, more power to you. You're going to go undefeated and take down everyone this year and win your first championship. But it's highly unlikely that these guys are going to have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns every week. But you got it here, so you got to feel good about starting off the season strong. And good luck to you both going forward. Next, we had the Springfield Isotopes, who are represented by the Antonio Brown in the final season of having him. Maybe, unless we get a top 3 draft pick next year, I would imagine. The Isotopes went up against the Detonators and took this one down by a score of 203.8 to 157.75. Let's see. Big games from Romo, over 60 from him, 35 from Julio Jones, 28 from Antonio Brown. Let's see. Ryan Matthews managed a touchdown. Jarvis Landry managed to salvage a day with his kick return touchdown. Got some bonus points there. Seattle defense gave up a lot of points. They lost the game. Did some really stupid things in the overtime. And at the end of that game, just didn't look right. Onside kicking at the beginning of overtime, that doesn't make any sense. And then Pete Carroll tries to explain it, that it was a mistake. They were supposed to do like a pooch punt or something. Like, no, you guys were kicking an onside kick. That was not a pooch punt. But they scored 2 defensive touchdowns, 1 defensive and 1 special teams. Got plenty of points there, even in the loss. And that was enough to overcome the Detonators, who rolled the dice this year with their quarterback situation. Didn't take one till pretty late in the drafts, late mid-round, late early rounds. You got Bridgewater as your starting quarterback. That's going to be tricky all season long. I think this week was more typical of what he's going to be with his 33-point performance. I think, you're going to get a couple 50, 60-point performances out of him here and there. Probably like 2 or 3 during the course of the season. But 33, somewhere in that 30 to 40 range is much more likely. I talked about injuries a little bit ago. T.Y. Hilton got you 15 points. He was rolling right along pretty good until he got hurt. They're still unsure about how long he's going to be out. So you got to be hoping for the best on that one. Good game from Emmanuel Sanders. I think about the only good fantasy game out of anybody in that Broncos-Ravens game was him. And he still only got you 14 points. No offensive touchdowns in that game. Alfred Morris, 120 yards, no touchdowns, no catches, but pretty much a standard Alfred Morris day. He's going to get you over 100 yards, or he's going to get you like 80 yards and a touchdown. 15 points from him. Delaney Walker got a touchdown and a couple catches before he got hurt and left the game. Jamal Charles, not too much rushing, but he made up for it, having him in the flex. He got you, I think, 9 points from his receiving stats, and he also caught a touchdown pass. Miami Dolphins defense did pretty well. They kept pace with my Seattle team with the kick return. He got a kick return touchdown, but unfortunately, it was Jarvis Landry who was on my team, and so it was a long touchdown. So those 9 points we both got. So it kind of balanced out there. And let's see, kicker, all right. Jordan Norwood, you had to pick him up and play him because Mike Evans didn't play. He only got you 2 catches, 20 yards. Joik Bell, did not have him in the flex. That's where most of his points came from. He actually had the same score as Andre Williams on the Isotopes, so they pretty much balanced each other out too. Other than that, some big games from the big receivers on the Isotopes, and a big game from Tony Romo, almost doubling up what you got from Bridgewater, and that's definitely the difference in this one. And the Isotopes start 1-0, Ice Detonators 0-1, and second place so far for the Isotopes, and 9th for the Detonators. Alright, who should we talk about next? This one was a yawner, if I have to say so. The Raritan Wolves going up against Possum Magic. Boy, Possum Magic takes this one down with the score of 133.7. And the Wolves had only 110.05. The guy who set the league record for points last year starts off this year with the lowest point total out of anyone, and 110, that's about as low as you want to go. Andrew Luck, typical day from him, 45 points. But your receiving core, Aguilar, Colston, Floyd, they managed to get you a combined, 10 points. That's not going to get it done. Marshawn Lynch, over half of his points came from receiving, and those points did not count for you. Jeremy Hill got what you wanted from him, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns. You would like to see him, especially in a blowout like that game was, you'd like to see him get over 100 yards, but you'll take the 2 touchdowns and whatever you can get. Jimmy Graham, got a touchdown from him, pretty good stats from tight end. Other than Gronk, and I guess it looks like maybe Kelsey, Graham's probably going to be one of the most consistent plays this year. I don't think he's going to have those huge Gronk-type games, or I guess you could say Jimmy Graham-type games that he had with New Orleans, but looks like the Seahawks they're gonna use him. They're gonna throw passes to him, especially down in the end, down in the red zone. Looks like he'll probably get it. Looks like he's probably going to be good for at least 10 touchdowns this year, would be my guess. You flexed Fred Jackson, who is also a running back now for the Seattle Seahawks. You would have been better off flexing Marshawn Lynch and putting Fred Jackson in as your running back. Only 4 points from him. You got negative points from your kicker and the Philadelphia defense. Couple turnovers, but not too much from them as they got routed. Well, they didn't get routed. They didn't look good, and they lost the game to the Atlanta Falcons last night. Only 10 points on Yahoo. Might have been actually, I think it was only ended up being 7, if I remember correctly. You actually lost points there, thus your point total being so low. Possum Magic had to be sweating this one out because 133 would not have been enough to beat most of the teams in the league this week. It's probably wouldn't be enough most weeks to get a win, but you did it this week, so that's all that matters. A win is a win. On the race to the playoffs, the race to 7, I think. Well, as we always debate and argue about. Tannehill, definitely. I would have to say this was a disappointing performance from him. Only 1 touchdown, just over 200 yards. You really expected Miami to come out and just run away with this one. What a mess the Washington Redskins were in the offseason, even just the preseason, with RG3 and everything just going wrong with that team from a management and player point of view. But 36 points, that's only slightly more than what Teddy Bridgewater did. There's got to be better days down the road from Ryan Tannehill. AJ Green, Charles Johnson, Kendall Wright, Good game. Probably the best game came from Kendall Wright. He was over 100 yards and a touchdown in that surprising performance, I'd have to say, by the Tennessee Titans. Didn't think they would be the highest scoring team in the NFL this week, but everybody's praising Mariota after week 1, even though I think he only threw 15 passes, but 4 of them were touchdowns, and his receivers did most of the work after he threw the pass, but he's getting all the credit. So we'll see how that goes further down the season here. DeMarco Murray, running back for you. You didn't flex him because you got Andre Ellington, which is probably the right play, but it looks like Ellington, who always gets hurt, is already hurt, and he might be out for a month or so. They're not sure. I mean, everything other than outside of an injury we'll get to coming up, the information has been very sporadic so far. Is he out for a week? Is he out for 4 weeks? You don't know. That's just just to wait and see as we get into the rest of further into the week here. But let's get back to DeMarco Murray. He got you 2 touchdowns. Not much on the yardage wise, but he made up for it with those touchdowns. Doug Martin, preseason Cinderella, I guess you could call him, the Cinderella hamster. Expectations were pretty high for him going into the season, but he did not do too much. 5 points from him, no touchdowns, only 50 rushing yards. Kyle Rudolph would have been nice if he'd gotten you a touchdown, but he got a pretty standard Kyle Rudolph game, 5 catches, 50 yards. Kicker did pretty good, but yeah, the Minnesota defense, which I think you played over Denver, which was probably a bad idea in hindsight here. Minnesota didn't do too good. Obviously, Carlos Hyde ran wild all over them. But Kaepernick didn't look too impressive, I'd have to say. You blocked a kick, you got a couple turnovers, but it just wasn't yardage-wise. They gave up a lot of yardage. Really, you were hoping for more turnovers, maybe a pick 6 or something like that, get a touchdown in there somewhere. But Yahoo says 13. I think it was right around that, maybe a little bit more. So, like I said, Ellington, he did get you a touchdown and 70 yards. But he's hurt, so you might be losing him for quite a while. Looks like if the first game is any indication, the Eagles look like they're going to be using their running backs a lot in the passing game. So DeMarco Murray might drop down into your flex position. I know you got a couple other people. You didn't play Mark Ingram. I think he was the leading receiver for the Saints. That's probably mostly because C.J. Spiller didn't play this week. You're not going to get another 8-catch, 98-yard game from Mark Ingram, probably ever again. So while it looks good, I wouldn't chase those points in the future because you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you watch the game, the Denver-Baltimore game, I think you got to feel pretty strong about the Denver defense and are probably going to go with them more often than not here down the line in the regular season. But Boston Magic starts off 1-0. He's in 6th place. And there's a Huber in 12th place to start the season. We ended the season last year, and we start the season this year with a 12th place Huber. But this time it is the commish, Jimmy. He is 0-1, and he is the first one eliminated from the knockout pool. So you don't have to worry about that for the rest of the year. Next, we had the Huber Squashers. Speaking of the Hubers, going up against the Dub C Hooligans. The Le'Veon Bell-less Huber Squashers. And they managed to squeak this one out by a score of 166.15 to 160.9. Only a just over a 5-point difference here. It's got to be disappointing for the Dubsy hooligans. Hewer Squashers got 50 points from Roethlisberger. Big game from Edelman, over 10 catches, almost 100 yards. A typical Julian Edelman game. Steve Smith, really nothing from him. Randall, most of his points came from catching and only 60 yards rushing. D'Angelo Williams, I think, really surprised everyone. Over 120 yards rushing from him. Would have been nice for you if he managed to get a touchdown in there somewhere. But since he's just a fill-in for while we wait for Le'Veon to come back, you'll definitely take those points, 15 points, 16 from him, if he does that every week. Martellus Bennett, the black unicorn, 5 for 55 and a touchdown. Probably as best you can expect from him. Good game. Abdullah, had him in the flex while you wait for Le'Veon to come back. Looks like that's going to be a pretty good play all season long. If you got to see any of that game or watched highlights, man, the guy, he is what they said he was going to be. He's fast. He gets things done. He juked somebody from Seattle or San Diego on his touchdown run. He's gonna be a big hit or miss player, I think, this year. He's gonna break those long runs, but he's gonna have I think he's gonna have a lot of short ones too. But you're hoping for is those little screen passes off to him. But he's a rookie. You got to be careful. They don't use him too much, especially as the season goes along. That's the most important time, really. And as a rookie, they kind of tend to hit a wall somewhere along the line. But if he gets you wins here at the beginning of the season, when you don't have Le'Veon, this is the most important time to be racking up some wins. So no reason to be upset. A 20-point performance from him, you'll definitely take that every week if you can get it. Arizona defense going up against New Orleans, gave up a lot of points, a lot of yardage. We would have liked to get maybe a few more turnovers from them, but Drew Brees, he's not the kind of quarterback who's going to make a whole lot of mistakes and give you a lot of turnovers. So 50 from Roethlisberger, 20 from Edelman. Let's see, 15 from Williams, 20 from Abdullah. That was enough to get you, over the 160 point. As for Dubsy Hooligans, only 33 points from Stafford. That was a little bit disappointing in a game that you kind of knew was going to be a shootout. But most of his points and the touchdowns went to Abdullah. And Stafford's points most of the touchdowns went to players who probably weren't in any starting lineups. Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate definitely disappointed pretty much everyone who had them this week. As for your receiving core, though, you had Brandon Cooks, Devontae Adams, John Brown. I think going into the season, there definitely were high expectations for all three of those guys. The only one who really performed this week was John Brown, even though he started off fast. I bet it really didn't do too much in the second half of that game. He did manage to get you a touchdown. Lamar Miller, he's pretty much as high as expectations can ever be for him. This is typical Lamar Miller. You got 50 yards from him, no touchdowns. You would have liked to get at least 1 or 2 touchdowns from him. Didn't happen this week. Gronk, we all know what happened there. Thursday night against the Steelers. 3 touchdowns from him. Forsett plugged him into the flex. Got you 9 points. Carolina defense, pretty much what you expected or hoped from them, going up against the Jaguars. Disappointing performance from a lot of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, yeah, it's the Jaguars. It's Jacksonville. But they've got some young talent on that team. You expect them to do a little bit more, especially Allen Robinson, Hearns, Yeldon. Even you were hoping Blake Bortles. People were hoping that he would take a step forward this season, but against a tough defense like Carolina, that didn't pan out. A couple turnovers, got a touchdown from them. They only gave up 9 points. Yahoo says 26. It was probably, I think it was like 40 or 41 was the actual score. But the biggest influence on this matchup, as I said, only a barely under 6-point difference, was, which it surprised me whenever it was mentioned on Sunday, because the last I had really checked this matchup, Dubsy Hooligans had Danny Woodhead in the flex, which I'm still disappointed in the draft whenever Kevin managed to pick up Danny Woodhead, because it was ridiculously late in the draft. Unfortunately, I got the wrong side of the draft board up there, or I could look and tell you exactly where he was drafted. But because that was the perfect play for him while he waits for Arian Foster to come back. Woodhead's a great flex play, which he proved to be this week. But nope, you took him out, and we got to get Detling some losses here while he doesn't have Le'Veon Bell, Kevin. And what do? This whole Cleveland Browns running back thing, were you trying to prove a point that you're the best? You wanted to, look, I'm going to put in Isaiah Crowell and he's going to win me the game, and I'm going to puff out my chest and brag about that for the rest of the season. Is that what you were thinking was going to happen when Cleveland in New York playing the Jets? You really thought the Cleveland Browns running back was going to do better moving Forsett to the flex and benching Woodhead in a game that a lot of people expected to be the shootout that kind of was the Chargers-Lions game? Ugh, Kevin. I don't know. I don't know what it was. You did this to yourself. You pretty much handed Detling a victory. It's easy to say in hindsight, obviously, but I've got nothing else to say. You better not make such boneheaded decisions again in the future. So, man, I'm sure you're frustrated about this one. I'm frustrated for you that's how this one turned out. All right, but Huber Squasher gets the win. He's in 4th place. Dubsy, he gets the loss, down in 8th place. Next, we had the Rook, the Gags, the Fry Cook, going up against the awkwardly named Craig Kubicek's team. Another close matchup, only a 6-point difference here again, but the Rook manages to take this one down with 141.7 to 135.95. Just talking about the Chargers-Lions game, 62 points from Phillip Rivers, over 400 yards from him. So that's almost half of your points just from Phillip Rivers, which seems to be something you say at least 2 or 3 times every year with when you've got Phillip Rivers as your quarterback, which I believe this is your last year with him being an eligible keeper. So you might have to draft him a little earlier than round 17 next year if you want him. Your receiving core. Look, I know the Isotopes put together a pretty good, the best. I'm not going to say that they're the best receiving core in the league, but a pretty strong one. But going into the season, I was definitely looking at the Rooks lineup, and I was like, wow, he's got Calvin Johnson, he's got Odell Beckham Jr., and he's got Jeremy Maclin, who had a huge preseason. They were throwing touchdowns to him. Man. And, the first week, yeah, they were a big disappointment, but going forward, man, that combination, that trio, the three-headed triumvirate, as Detling would call it, there's going to be better times down the road for those guys, that combination. They only got you about 25 points this week. There's going to be weeks where each one gets you 25 points and you just crush somebody. So you still got to win this week, so be happy that a lot of your players underperformed and you still got the win. Said you were relying a lot on the Chiefs pass catchers. You got Macklin. He didn't do too much, but you made up for it with Travis Kelce. He had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Made up for it because Sammy Watkins in your flex got a big 0. McFadden, a lot of hype, preseason hype for him, much like Doug Martin, and much like Doug Martin, he ended up going out there not doing too much. LaShawn McCoy, most of his points came from receiving and receiving yardage. He didn't get credit for those because you're not able to flex him. You got Sammy Watkins in there, like I said. Patriots D, not a great game. Only 1 turnover, a couple sacks, gave up a lot of yardage, but they got the win. I think not Yahoo says 9. I think it was slightly more than that, but definitely it was enough to take down Craig Kubic's team. Which, if that stays at your team name the entire season, it's a little bit awkward to say that over and over again. So I should just go back to referring to them as the Twerk and Bowl Cuts, which that works. That still works for me. I'm a little bit disappointed that the team name has never been yet the Twerk and Bowl Cuts. So maybe if I just keep saying it over and over, that'll stick it in your head and you'll change it up here somewhere down the line. Just, if anything, just to appease me for a week. But Aaron Rodgers, typical game from him, 43 points, 3 touchdowns. You would like to see in a game that it wasn't a shootout, but the Bears definitely did better than people expected. You'd like to see a little bit more than 18 completions and under 200 yards from Aaron Rodgers. But so that's like his floor. You're going to get better days, much better days from him down the line. Your receiving core pretty much actually outperformed, but underperformed. They outperformed the Rook, but I would say they still underperformed overall. Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Pierre Garçon. Would have liked, Andre Johnson, he caught 4 passes, but only 24 yards. You got to see more from him down the line to make him worth it. Fitzgerald and Pierre Garçon, I think you pretty much got what you would expect from them. They both caught 6 passes for about 80 yards. Sprinkling a touchdown here or two. Touchdown or 2 here down the line. You're probably going to get more points from them at different times. Jonathan Stewart, 50 yards. Yeldon, 50 yards. No touchdowns from those guys. Tyler Eifert, though, did most of the damage for the Bengals in that one. Jeremy Hill and Tyler Eifert pretty much scored all the points. He had 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards on 9 catches. Big game from him. Frank Gore, almost nothing from him. You started the Cleveland defense when you had the Rams defense on your bench in St. Louis. The past couple of years, I think it's no mystery that the Rams always play excuse me, the Rams always play the Seahawks tough, and especially at home, they usually do pretty well. But you went with Cleveland on the road. I know they're going up against Fitzpatrick, but it's Cleveland, and they got a strong running game, which they did. Irie did good. Touchdowns. They're a better team than I think people give them credit for. Both Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker both had touchdowns. But yeah, you just it's hard to go against the Rams defense. I think they're all around, uh, especially yardage wise, they're going to contain their opponents. I'm giving I don't know why I'm saying this stuff because I would much rather you play the Cleveland defense every week instead of pulling the Rams up off your bench. If I talk about it too much, that might end up being what you actually do, which it'll probably end up hurting me somewhere down the line, and then I'll be like, why can't I just shut up and say the scores and give the numbers and keep these things under half an hour? So, all right, a 6 point difference. I mean, obviously the Rams defense could have been a huge difference here, but pretty much anything could have been a huge difference if one of your receivers had scored a touchdown, or somebody other than Tyler Eifert had scored a touchdown. That would have swung this one the other way in favor of the Twerk and Bowl Cuts, but it was not meant to be this week. And the Rook gets his first win. He's in 5th place, and Twerk and Bowl Cuts are all the way down in 11th place. Last matchup is the Mighty Midgets going up against Chips My Boy. And Chip was not quite enough for you this week, as the Mighty Midgets take this one down by a score of 167.5 to 153, an even 153. A little disappointing performance from Matt Ryan. He almost got you the 300-yard bonus, couple touchdowns, only 40 points. You would hope a little bit more from him, especially since Sam Bradford looks like what's going to be a typical game from him. 36 completions. That's a ridiculous amount. Over 300 yards, a couple touchdowns, but some interceptions, especially a costly one at the end of the game. Potentially cost them the game. 10 of his 36 completions went to Jordan Matthews. So the Bradford to Matthews connection looks like it'll be strong this year, as long as Sam Bradford stays healthy. But you have to think that the Eagles are not going to throw that many times every game. You got 3 good running backs, and you barely ran the ball at all. I'm sure that's a strategy that's going to change from week to week. With those guys, you got to think they're going to run way more often than they did in this one. They fell behind by a pretty good margin early, so they had to go to the passing game. But here, I'm talking about Chips and Boy when I was trying to talk about Mighty Midgets here. Said Brandon Marshall, 6 for 60 and a touchdown. Good. That's pretty much what you're going to expect, or at least hope to expect from him every week. Alshon Jeffrey, just about the same thing, but no touchdown. Allen Robinson, mentioned him before. Really disappointment all around by Jacksonville. He only caught 1 pass for 27 yards. Most of Latavius Murray's stats came from receiving. He didn't get credit for those. Coleman actually did pretty well. 80 yards from him. You would have liked to see a touchdown maybe, but that didn't happen. Jason Witten, once Dez Bryant went down, didn't get... said nothing from Bryant then, and it was... the Cowboys were in pass mode the entire time, and Witten was the fortunate recipient of 2 touchdowns. 2 Tony Romo touchdowns there. 8 catches, 60 yards, 26 points from him. Eddie Lacy, 85 yards and a touchdown. You would have liked to see a little bit more from him, especially against a weak opponent like the Bears. 18 points from him. You would have liked to see maybe a few more catches and getting you some flex points more than he did here. Maybe going down the line that'll change, but I'm sure you'll take 18 points every week from him. Pretty good score. Uh, your kicker did really good. He had a bunch of. No, he did not have a bunch of touchdowns. That would have been something, but bunch of field goals, a 50-yarder, 40-yarder, and Detroit defense. They did get a touchdown, a couple of turnovers, helped you out there, but they gave up a lot of points, lost the game, gave up a ton of yards, especially through the air. I don't think they gave up a lot of rushing yards, but Philip Rivers was over 400 yards in this one, so that definitely impacted your score there. Could have been better, but Yahoo says 17. It might have been a little bit more than that, or like right around that score. You knew that game was probably going to be a shootout, so you got to be excited to get 17 points out of that one. As for Chips, my boy, combined about 85 points from 75 points from Bradford and Matthews. Chris Ivory, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns from him. Pretty much what everyone was hoping from a good strong performance from him. He's not going to score 2 touchdowns every week, but that's kind of what you're hoping for. Is he's going to be the focal point of that running game. Going to have some good games down here as the season progresses. Unfortunately, that was pretty much it for your team. Amari Cooper suffered from quarterback injuries, poor quarterback play. Mike Wallace, surprisingly, 6 for 60 in a disappointing performance all around, I think, by the Vikings. Especially your other guy in the flex, Adrian Peterson. I think a lot of us expected him to come out and be angry and just take out his aggressions on the San Francisco 49ers. But it looked like the 49ers were the ones who turned the table here and held him in check. And I think they said during the game, if you were watching it, that San Francisco actually has historically done very well against Adrian Peterson and really shut him down more than any other team has. I don't know if they figured out something about him or whatever it is, they always manage to shut him down, which they did here. Larry Donnell was your starting tight end. I guess you were hoping to squeeze a touchdown or 2 out of him. That did not happen. Melvin Gordon is one of your starting running backs. He's a rookie. You got a couple of rookies going in your starting lineup. That's a tough spot to be in because they can't all be Odell Beckham Jr.'s. But Amari Cooper looks like he had a great preseason. Looks like he could be good here as the season goes on. But if Derek Carr, is it Derek Carr? I don't even care because I don't know because I don't care anything barely about that team. If he's out, he got hurt. I don't know how long he's going to be out. That might definitely affect Cooper's performance here in the next few weeks. But your kicker did all right. Got you a couple field goals. Dallas defense, they got you a win. But they gave up a lot of yardage. Most of the points, Dallas actually, they get at least some of the points were off of turnovers, defensive touchdowns from the Giants, but all those points count. So Yahoo says 7. I think it was a little bit more than that, but you would have liked to see more there, especially this matchup is only a 14-point difference. So if you had gotten a decent game from Adrian Peterson, he got 8 points. If you got closer to like 20, maybe got a touchdown, a little bit more than 30 rushing yards. This one could have gone the other way. Said Cooper let you down. Wallace I guess expectations aren't really high for him to begin with, but he let you down. Gordon let you down. Donnell let you down. Peterson let you down. So, you got a couple of big performances that pushed you over the 150 mark, but Those other guys just couldn't quite do it for you. A touchdown or two, and that would have been that could have made a difference in this one, but it did not happen. And Mighty Midgets gets the win. He is in third place with it wasn't the third highest score of the week. That would have been FC Bohorik, but he lost. And Chips, my boy, you are 0-1, and you start in 10th place down there, saying hi to your brother in the basement of Tante's Demise. But it's only the first week, so we had a lot of good matchups. Like I said, 2 matchups only had a 6-point margin, and that last one only 14 points. So pretty much everyone was in the, 140 to 170. Everybody was kind of like in that range. So that's what you're going to need to get a win this year. At least, you got to get 110 is not going to cut it. Pasta Magic got a win with 130. That's not going to happen very often. The Rook, you got a win with 140. Relatively speaking, over the course of the season, those are kind of low scores. But hey, win is a win. That's all that matters. And making the playoff run, getting there, as long as you get there, that's all that matters. So it may be ugly, but you get a win. That's all that matters. FC Bohorik, got to feel bad for the defending champ. Putting up a huge score, he would have beaten pretty much anybody. But sometimes, I know it's happened to me, said many times before. So you just gotta, it stings, but you gotta put it behind you and go on to the next week. Yeah, because hey, your team's gonna put up points. You just got unlucky for 1 week. So as much as that hurts right now, you just got to put it behind you and keep moving on and get some wins here, turn things around. It's only the first week, and I'm just really rambling right at this point. So, I think as we said before, Raritan Wolves, you are the first ones eliminated from the knockout pool, and I don't think I said anything about Des Bryant, who went out early in the game with dehydration. But then he went out later in the game with what is now known to be a broken bone in his foot. I think he had surgery. They're saying he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. I think I read somewhere last night, someone said that sources close to Des Bryant think it's going to be more like 8 weeks till he comes back. That's a huge. If that's what happens, that's a huge blow for the Hewer Squashers. He was the 4th overall pick this year. Glad that the Isotopes drafted with their heads Julio Jones and not their hearts, which would have been Des Bryant. But really, was Des Bryant worth the 2nd overall pick going into this season? Definitely, I think so. Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago you would have said that. Not right, obviously not right now, but Des did not practice really. He did nothing pretty much the whole preseason, and for me, that was kind of a giant red flag. Like that's something. I can't say historically, but it seems like it may not be factual, but it just seems to me like a lot of times when you have players who sit out a lot of the preseason with a nagging injury, get that rest. I mean, they already got their rest in the offseason. They need to get out there and play, get their bodies in shape, get ready to go. Probably why he had the dehydration early in that game. And then, obviously, he went on to break his foot, which is just it's a freak thing. It's a fluke injury. Those things happen. but there has to be some level of merit thinking that him not practicing, not playing any preseason games, really getting those reps with the team, getting his body ready to play, and just instead resting his injury and then just throwing him out there in the first week, expecting him to be the normal Des Bryant that we expect him to be. And it just quite didn't pan out. And now he's hurt, and he's going to be out half the season. But then again, I mean, like I said, between him and Julio Jones, you look at Julio Jones, he went out, he played in the preseason. What little that he did play, man, he looked strong. Him and Matt Ryan just had the connection going, and that was definitely a huge difference between for me at least, choosing which one of those two guys to go with. So it could just as easily have gone the other way. Not to jinx anything, but we all know that Julio Jones has had foot problems in his history, so hopefully he can keep that behind them at least for one more year. And so, okay, enough of my ramblings about stuff that I should probably insights that I should probably just keep to myself and not share with you guys. But wait, what can I say? I'm a giver. We're all friends here, so I just if I wasn't giving you guys insights and tips that, it's only because I want to make you guys better, because I want the competition to be stronger. I want you guys to give me a challenge. All right, that's enough. Enough of my crap here for this week. You're sick of listening to it. All right, that's it for week 1. Going on to week 2, here coming up right away, going into Thursday night. Broncos-Chiefs should be a good game. A lot of fantasy implications on a quick turnaround here. So, there was no podcast preview in week 1. I think there won't be another one here in week 2 while Detling is still away. He should be back for week 3, but I'm a little disappointed because I'm pretty sure Detling he's been absent in the past, and the podcast has still gone on as normal. But so maybe shirking your responsibilities, well, you are punished this week with injuries to Hilton and Delaney Walker and Des Bryant and all of. Maybe that was some kind of fantasy gods punishing you a little bit for not taking care of business. But I should just stop talking about injuries and the fantasy gods and jinxes and curses while we're maybe the detonators have maybe they've gotten rid of one curse and started another one. I don't know. All right. All right, everyone. We will see you here next week. Good luck to everyone here coming up in week 2. And we'll see you then. Okay?